Hello, and welcome to our RE lesson. Welcome to our RE lesson. Now, we are going to be looking at significant events and looking particularly at a story from the Bible, which is also in the Quran and in the Torah. Now, what I want you to do, Year 6, is to work through this PowerPoint. This video is a little bit on the longer side, but it's got a couple of other videos from YouTube within it. So it's not just me just talking at you for this full length of time. So watch the videos. There's information on the page that you can click on that gives you more info. But for now, let's go into my screen. Here we go. So, in our lesson today, we are going to be looking at trying to understand what makes an event significant and understanding the significance of Moses' story. So my first question for you is this. What is a significant event and what makes an event significant? So we need to know what the word significant means, and it means like it's important. So we're thinking what is an important event and what makes an event important. But it's going to be different for different people, isn't it? For me, the birth of my son's a very significant event because it like Joel, when he was born, I suddenly became a dad and my whole life completely changed. Now, was the birth of Joel significant for, say, your parents? No, because they didn't even know Joel was born. So what's significant for one person doesn't mean that it's significant for another person. So quickly having a think, significant events have happened in your life. Okay, so these might be things that maybe just you and your family were of. They might be big things. I said there's something fairly significant going on at the minute. Over the last 10 months, our lives have completely changed because of coronavirus. That has been incredibly significant. And what other things have happened that are significant? You don't need to write anything down anywhere. Just be having a little think about these things. What is it that's been going on that's significant in your life? So worldwide stuff, we talked about coronavirus. Is there anything else that you can think of that's happened recently that's significant? Maybe you can ask people in your family, is there anything that's significant for them? Now we're going to quickly look at these 5 things. We're going to try and have a little think about why these are significant. So firstly, there's the Abolition of Slavery Act passed in 1833. So what that means is, this was when slavery was made illegal. Before this, you could legally own a person, a bit like you own a dog, or you might own a cat, or you might own some like cows if you're a farmer. You could legally own a person, and you could make them do whatever you wanted them to, as long as you own them. So 1833 was just less than 200 years ago, so not actually that long ago. Before that, it was legal to own a slave, to own a person, to make them do whatever you wanted to do, to not pay them. They were like having a kind of a cow on a farm. But in 1833, that was made illegal. So why was that significant? The end of World War I. So again, just over 100 years ago, World War I, which lasted for 4 years and involved many countries around the world, ended. Why was that significant? In 1928, just about 90 years ago, women were able to be given the right to vote in Britain. So before that, men could vote for who was going to be the next Prime Minister, but women certainly couldn't. And it took many, many years of campaigning and many, many years of protesting for that to be made legal so that women could vote. Another one, 30 years ago, the release of Nelson Mandela from prison. So Nelson Mandela was a guy in South Africa, and in South Africa, racism was huge. There was like black people weren't allowed to mix with white people. They had all sorts of different rules. And Nelson Mandela, who was a black man, he said this isn't right, and he fought really hard against it. And he was ended up put in prison for a long time. I can't remember exactly. Being put in prison for a long time, but eventually in 1990 he was told actually he'd done nothing wrong, and he was released from prison, and he actually went on to become the president of South Africa. Maybe it's the Prime Minister, don't know which word to use, but the leader of South Africa. And then finally Barack Obama being sworn in as US president just over 11 years ago. Why is that so significant? Why was that so significant for so many people in America and so many people around the world? Well, it was significant because he was the first black man to ever become Prime Minister, the first black person, and the first person of colour, man or woman, to become the President in the United States. And for many, many people, black people, Asian people, they saw this as a huge thing, that actually maybe they could be treated just as well as other people. So all of these events are hugely significant. What do they have in common? So people being told that they don't need to be slaves anymore, people not having to fight anymore, people being able to vote, the release of Nelson Mandela from prison, and then he went on to make huge changes in South Africa, along with other people. That meant that black people were starting to be treated equally to white people. And then Obama being sworn in. So the thing that they have in common is freedom. All of these, when they happened, it resulted in freedom for different people. So obviously for slaves, they were given their freedom. They were told you're not owned by somebody anymore. At the end of World War I, many, many people who were fighting were free to go home. Many people who had lived in war zones were free again. In 1928, women had the freedom to vote for who they wanted for. They didn't just have to go along with what the men were saying. In South Africa, when Nelson Mandela was released, he was given freedom from prison. But then also that resulted in the freedom for many people of colour to not have to be treated like they were a lower class. And then again, finally, Obama being sworn in allowed many people to feel like they had freedom to be treated as equal across America and the world. Now, sticking with that theme of freedom, can you think of any events from the Bible, the Quran or the Torah that included people gaining freedom? So just have a little think. Any stories that you might have heard at school or at mosque or at church that you can think of people gaining freedom? There are quite a few. So one of them that I can think of is Jonah, and he was swallowed up by a big fish, and after a while he was given freedom from that situation, and then he followed God and did the thing that God was asking him to do. Another one could be where Daniel, he was punished by the king, and he was thrown into a lion's den, and God protected him, and then he was given freedom from the lion's den the next morning, and he was set free. Now, the stories that we're going to spend today thinking of is the story of Moses. Now, Moses comes up in the Old Testament of the Bible. He's also talked about in the Quran, and he's also talked about in the Torah. And all of the stories are similar. There are some differences, but they are similar. So what do we already know about Moses? Again, you don't need to write anything down. Just be having a little think about that. And what we're going to do is we're going to watch a couple of videos. I like the videos, the ones where like Jesus is hey yo, that kind of video, to help us to try and recall and remember a little bit about Moses' life. Now watch them carefully, because in a little bit you're going to be doing a little bit of writing about it. Okay.
The Faithful Hall of Fame, Moses. This is Moses.
Hey-o.
Moses was a descendant of Joseph's brother Levi.
Hey.
Joseph and his brothers had many children and grandchildren who lived happily in Egypt. Eventually, a new pharaoh came to power who knew nothing of Joseph or what he had done. This pharaoh feared the Israelites because there was a great number of them living in Egypt, so he wanted to put a stop to their prosperity. Pharaoh made the Israelites slaves. He made them work long, hard hours building up Egyptian cities. But his plan didn't work, and the Israelites grew more in number and in strength.
Eek.
So Pharaoh made a rule that no Israelite boy would be allowed to live in Egypt. This is where Moses' story begins. You see, when Moses was born, his mother saw that he was a special baby, and she kept him hidden for 3 months. But when she could no longer keep him a secret, she made a basket and put him in the Nile River among the reeds. Moses' sister stayed to watch what would happen to her baby brother, and soon the Pharaoh's daughter came to the edge of the river. When she saw the basket, she sent her servant to get it. When she saw the baby, she felt sorry for him, thinking he must be an Israelite baby who wasn't supposed to live. Then Moses' sister asked the princess if she would like her to find an Israelite woman to take care of the baby. So Moses' sister went and got her mother. Moses' own mother took care of him until he was old enough to live in the Pharaoh's house, where the princess adopted him as her son. And so, Moses, an Israelite boy who wasn't supposed to live, became the adopted grandson of the Pharaoh and lived in the palace as God prepared him for a great destiny that was only just starting.
So that first video gave us a bit of an idea of what the start of Moses' life was like. We're now going to watch a second video which shows us a little bit more about what the rest of his life was like. Here we go.
The Faithful Hall of Fame, Moses. This is Moses, who was an Israelite born in Egypt in a time when Israelite boys were not supposed to live.
Wait, huh?
Moses, however, grew up in the palace of the Pharaoh, the very man who was enslaving the Israelite people. When Moses grew up, he made a big mistake. So Moses ran away from Egypt to the land of Midian. After many years, an angel of the Lord appeared to Moses and told him to go back to Egypt to free the Israelites. After much protesting, God granted Moses his brother Aaron to speak on his behalf. So Moses went to Egypt. And on his way there, he met Aaron, who was ready to do whatever God wanted him to do. The Israelites were slaves to the Egyptians, but God had a special plan for Moses.
Hey, everyone!
After rallying God's people to them, Moses and Aaron went to the Pharaoh. And said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, has said. Let my people go." And Pharaoh made the Israelites work harder because of this. The foremen of the Israelite slaves were angry with Moses and Aaron for causing this trouble. So Moses cried out to God and asked why this was happening. But God said, "You will see what I will do. I am the Lord. I will deliver you from slavery."
Wow, okay. Hey!
Moses told this to the people,
Hey!
but they were so discouraged that they didn't listen to him. God told Moses to go to Pharaoh and to do exactly as he said. So Moses and Aaron went to the Pharaoh.
Hey!
God told them to take the staff and throw it down before Pharaoh. Pharaoh was not impressed. He called his wise men and sorcerers, and they did the same thing. But Aaron's staff swallowed up the sorcerer's staff, Yet Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he would not listen to them,
Shoot, shoot.
just as God had said. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go to the banks of the Nile River and meet Pharaoh."
Hey, Pharaoh. Oh, man.
Moses and Aaron did just as God had said.
Oh.
But again, Pharaoh's magicians did the same miracle, and Pharaoh refused to let God's people go. So God sent 9 more plagues to Egypt to show his power. Even with all the suffering, Pharaoh's heart stayed hard, and he would not let the people go. On the night of the last plague, Pharaoh woke up
Huh?
and heard a great cry in Egypt,
Oh, no.
for there was not a house in Egypt where someone was not dead. Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and told him to be gone with the Israelites. So the Israelites left Egypt immediately and made their way to the Promised Land, taking with them many riches from Egypt, and they took Joseph's bones as they had promised him many years before. But after they had gone, Pharaoh changed his mind and readied his army to take back the Israelites. When the Israelites saw Pharaoh and his armies come, they were terrified. But God made a way for them. Through all of this, the Israelites saw the great power of their God, the one true God, and they put their trust in Moses.
So now that we've watched both of those videos, your task is this. You are going to come up with at least 6 different questions that you would like to have asked Moses about his feelings during at some point in his life. Now I want them to be open-ended questions. What that means is I want them to be able to, for the answer to not just be yes or no, or a very quick like blue. I want you to think of questions that really will make him think about his thoughts, okay? So, for example, I don't want questions that say like this. Moses, what is your favorite color? Because that's not showing anything from the story. What I do want is questions that are maybe something like this. When you first heard God talking from the burning bush, how did it make you feel? And then Moses will be able to give a good answer for that. Or you could say the first time that you were approaching Pharaoh to ask him to let the Israelites go, did you think you'd be successful and why? Or we could say, when you finally did get your freedom and you were leading the people out and you got to the sea, but you noticed that the Egyptians were coming behind, was it still easy to trust God in that situation and why? So your task, year 6, is like it says, to ask some of these questions. If you want to impress me, you could write the answer for them, but I'm not desperately asking for that. What I'd really like you to do is just write the answer for a couple of them. So at least 6 questions, and I want you to give me maybe answer 1 or 2 of them, or maybe even a few more than that. And that is your task for today. There is another link that you can click on, and that will give you a bit more information, but I think you've got enough to go on year 6. Okay, see you later. Bye.